Hi, this is Dr. Murphy from the Local Healing House, and welcome to the Local Healing House show, where we discuss different types of businesses, women in business, and our wellness around how we do our entrepreneurship. Today, I have a very special guest for you. She's someone who I've known for a very long time. Her name's Lisa, and I met Lisa maybe around 2004, 2005, in that time zone. And I met her through my work as a massage therapist, and eventually we became friends. And she's someone who I care very, very much about. Lisa has some unique gifts that we're going to discuss. She also had a great experience selling and being in the wholesale industry. So we're going to go ahead and listen to the interview, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get something out of it. Hi, this is Dr. Murphy from the Local Healing House, and today I have a very special guest. Her name's Lisa, and I've known Lisa for I think about 20 years, and she was one of my first clients when I was a massage therapist. She was very encouraging, and I admired her so much as I was growing in the health and wellness industry that she became a great friend, a great mentor. And today we're here to talk about her experiences as a businesswoman who sold boats, who raised a son who's a beautiful human being, and she is vibrant, she's lively. I love her to death. Here is Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Well, wow, thank you. Thank you. That was very heartfelt and very true, the parts about knowing you for that long. Yes, that we go way back.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
So
we
happy to
do.
have met you. Absolutely.
I know. And I remember when I was new in the field, like I always thought everyone thought so poorly of me and they didn't like me. And I remember you had encouraged me and you kept saying, like, you're doing such a great job, stick with it. And yeah, I was just so impressed that you and me, like we had that connection and I felt safe working with you and learning and growing. So yeah, thank you for being
And
my
it was a pleasure to watch you, to
yeah.
go through like all your achievements and achieving all your goals. And I think to this day you've probably got some of the most powerful healing hands that I've ever
Oh,
felt, I must say.
thank you.
And in massage and in acupuncture, I mean, you're amazing. So just want to say that, get that out there.
Thank you, hearts. So, one of the things that I want to discuss with you today, especially as we're evolving into this wellness industry and about women who run businesses, there's a lot of stress that we tend to go through as someone who's raising a family, someone who is running a business, and there's all this stuff that goes on in our life that we try to make time for our family, but we also have to make time to do our business. So go into a little bit of detail with us about the business that you had and what you did with it.
Okay, thank you. Gosh, going back, I think I was in the boat business for probably close to like 30 years, and it was something I fell into very fatefully, but it allowed me to be able to, raise my son on my own, where I could have my own business, where I worked from home, and if God forbid he was sick, or I had to go pick him up from school or the daycare or something, that I could do that without having pressure from my boss or someone that I would work for. So I think I was very blessed, and I think that was heaven sent, that whole situation. And in the boat business, it was predominantly male, especially back when I got involved in it. Like, it was really, there was very, very few of us that were selling boats, yacht brokers,
Mhm.
as women. So, it was challenging in that way, but I found that I liked it because, I liked, I could work well with men, and
Mhm.
it was very interesting, and it was something new every day. I had a lot of international clients. We shipped boats all over the world, basically. It was like a wholesale business, and I was catering to dealers, helping them find boats that I could ship to them and they could turn around and sell
Mm.
over in their country and make profit. So it was something new every day, and it was very exciting, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I at some point segued into another business, but I took all the tools that I learned from the first business, running it all, by myself essentially. Um, you can take that with you wherever you go. So,
So,
it was looking back very interesting.
so why boats? How did you land in the boat industry?
I mean, it was fate. Very, very quick story. I was working in a bank. I was
Hmm.
always in retail up till then, and I was a little unhappy at that particular company. I was a little frustrated with their hiring practices and like promoting people and things like that.
Hmm.
And I started looking in the newspaper at the time. That was where you found the jobs, was the classified section. I saw a blind ad, which I wouldn't normally ever answer because I think if the company doesn't say who they are, there's a catch to it somehow. But it said, they were looking for attractive, which was women, right? And they didn't have to have experience. And something just kept driving me to call this number, and I couldn't get through to the gentleman that was doing the hiring. And I literally said to myself once when I'm dialing the number, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like I couldn't understand why I was like so persistent, but I finally got through, got hired, and it just, I mean, I loved it because we were outside, by the water. I'm Pisces. It's just, I learned a lot about boats, but like it was repossessed boats. So it
Hmm.
was more like just dealing with the people and talking with them and walking them around the yard and showing them on the boats. And, they kind of knew what they were looking for, but I'm learning as I went.
Hmm.
So that's how it became boats. And, I never would have imagined that that's where I was going to end up, or even have my own business at some point. So that was all fate.
What was it like? Because I feel like I'm in this situation myself where it's like I'm still kind of working a W-2 job. I have a big clinic and I'm doing a launch. So, how did you find that transition from being an employee to becoming your own boss? Was that an easy transition? Was it something that just kind of came about, or was that kind of like something you had to drive and work for?
Okay, I'm just, thinking back, like I I had a partner. At first I had a partner.
Okay.
I went from working, as an employee to having a partner.
Hmm.
And at that time I had my son. He was a baby, very, very small baby.
Hmm.
And we were working well together. He was more like really an investor, and we were buying and selling the boats, and I was basically doing all the work, but he was putting up the money.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we did good business together, but he decided to move to Las Vegas, and he was more interested in real estate. So
Hmm.
he just decided, he was going to move on from the boat business. So we parted ways amicably and friendly, but that left me like, just doing my own thing. And so it just kind of like segued without even me having to put too much thought in it. It just happened, to be honest with you. And I got very lucky, or fate again. I shook a hand of a young man in a boatyard, and we formed a really good connection with each other. And I probably shipped him probably 1,000 boats over 15 years or something. And he was a main client of mine. I had others, many others, but he, because of that connection with him, that got me going on my own.
Well,
And I would, find the boats for him, sell him the boats, and ship them to him. And for many years, I never met him. I mean, I met him, and then I didn't see him again. I
hmm.
shook hands with him. He went back home. He was in Sweden, and that got me going. And, I think that a lot of these things just, it's heaven sent, I'm going to say, just destiny. So, And so I just had to feel my way because I'd never, I mean, I was like a personal assistant to a guy that had like 4 or 5 furniture, location stores. And, so I was involved in like buying and selling and payroll and all the things that you do in business, but I was doing it for him. And, so I had a little bit of background, before I got into my own business, but I kind of had to feel my way. And of course, like, what you do in Florida is different than what you do in New York. And, so I just had to learn as I go.
So you kind of had a bit of a mentor prior to opening up your own business where you got to kind of see it through, being the assistant. And then you also kind of had an investor at first where you guys were working
Yes.
together. And then you also had this other character from Sweden who is actually also helping you to connect into those sales.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Like
awesome.
I just made it very easy. I mean, after that handshake, I could send him anywhere from 8 or 10 boats a month,
Wow.
just him. And then it grew from there. And at one time I probably had like 2 assistants or 3 assistants working for me. In out of my house, I had an office, and we were very busy. I was blessed, and business was great. It was booming. The dollar was good. You know, um, People had money. They were buying boats, and unfortunately, the economy, um, you know, went in kind of a dive. I think it was around 2008 or nine,
Mm-hmm.
and probably. I kind of skated through, and then about 2010, I had a little resurgence. I had a new client that I sold several boats to, consistently from Lebanon.
Mm.
And but then after that, like the dollar was too high. Like the conversion rate didn't make sense and the shipping prices, like it just kind of dried up. And
Oh.
again, another fate situation came where I basically had like a passion, and something that I was always doing in my life. You know, um, I'm gonna, call it like, let's say psychic ability,
Mm-hmm.
intuition. I segued, into that when things started, closing up for me in the boat business. Like there was the path, and I took it.
You know, now that you mentioned it, the very first massage I ever did at your house, you knew me from the chiropractor, so you knew me from working with a man. You did not
Yes.
know that I was working at that lymphatic clinic. And
No, I didn't.
you said your company's going to break up. You need to go with the blonde, not the brunette. And I went and I called the secretary and I said, "You would not believe what I just heard. I heard our company's breaking up. This lady doesn't even know I work with you guys, and she said I needed to go with the blonde and not the brunette." That week, the company split up, and I was with the brunette, who eventually ended up getting arrested for medical fraud, who got I guess ultimately she got deported because I don't she was from another country, but she came here and I think she got married and
Okay.
her husband was a lawyer. So at some point her husband was like, "I'm no longer protecting you because you've broken so many laws with medical billing and having people work for you illegally." But I avoided all of that because of what you told
Thank
me
God.
that first time that I went to your house. And you told me to go
Wow.
with Susie. And you told me like Susie was who I was supposed to work with. So I had already strategized with Susie, like, how do I get out of this situation from working with the brunette and go with you? And when I went back and looked at some of those lawsuits against her, they kept mentioning a massage therapist who worked for her. So I don't know if they were referring to me or someone else, but something that she was doing illegally with a massage therapist. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
but yeah,
Thank God.
I remember that. That like
Wow.
if you had not told me that, I would not have told Tamala that. I would not have been in such anxiety to leave working at that one location to go with Susie. Eh, you,
I mean, you may have told me that before, but I don't know if you have. And I really, it makes me feel really good that, I gave you a message that helped you, make a decision for yourself that turned out very, 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 very well.
Yeah.
And, thank you for sharing that with me too, because I always love confirmation from spirit. And I
Mm-hmm.
am humble enough to say that the messages just pass through me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just grateful that I can do that,
Yeah.
because it really comes from, from something else much bigger than me. So,
Yeah.
but that's a great, I now I remember the whole thing now going back. I can remember it, but thank you
Y-
for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah, that was like I think 2005 or 2006 that all that
Yeah.
happened. So that was quite a long
Yes.
time ago. The
Yes.
other
Wow.
thing, last year when we talked, because I always like to get my birthday reading, last year when we talked, I showed
Yes.
you a photo of a business that was similar to mine, and she was in a house, and the local healing house, I've always wanted to be in a house. And you had told me that something was going on with that owner, and they would probably want to sell their company, but it wasn't on the market or anything like that. And I had looked into it and it wasn't the right move for me. But she did sell. She sold the whole house recently,
Okay.
and it's completely changed too to a different business. So there's another confirmation where it's like you've
Wow.
really hit it on the head. Do you remember that one time I had the psychic tea party at my house and Susie was there? And I think you gave
Yes.
Susie some very important information about her pregnancy that was going on at the time. And I think that also
Yes.
came through too, because if I remember when her daughter was being born, um, she was very, very early, but so, and I don't remember what the whole deal was. And I kind of heard more about this from Susie, but like you had kind of told her like she needed to take a trip and everyone's going to tell her not to do it. Well, she took that trip and it was a business trip and she ended up giving birth, but that hospital was like the number one NICU hospital in the entire country. That if she hadn't been there, it might have been a different outcome. I don't know if she ever told you about that or not.
I don't know if I do, but I have goosebumps all over me just
Yeah.
replaying it. I think it's just amazing how, spirit works, and I'm always amazed, how, if there's a message, that needs to be passed, that it can come through, and, it's for the highest best, basically. So
Yeah.
thank you for, I do love to hear confirmation. I always tell my
Mhm.
clients, like, I like to hear good news. So please let me know.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So when you were
Mhm.
selling your boats, were you using, I mean, maybe not intentionally, but you kind of talked about how things just happened to fall into place and where it was fate and you didn't know why you had to answer this ad. Do you think that was kind of coming through?
Yes, I do. And I think that, like the fact that I became aware that I wasn't really like I wasn't really in control of it. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
fate was driving me to make that call and to be relentless, and that I was aware that something was going on here that I really didn't have control over,
Mm,
and I use, I mean, I would say that I've always used my intuition, um, meeting new people and either getting a vibe from them or even just looking in their eyes and knowing if they're trustworthy or not, or what kind of a feeling that you get from them, off of their energy. I always use that in my business and just everywhere in life, like friends, um, business situations, meeting new people. But I had always maintained, I had this curiosity, since I was probably in my 20s, about learning more about working with spirit and,
mm-hmm,
metaphysical, like spiritual things. I believe I was born, knowing, I would call myself an authentic reader. But I got like a fascination. So I was doing all that on the side of working with boats too, but all of a sudden it just became my main thing at some
mm-hmm,
point. And I basically had a talk with God. And I just said, okay, if you want me to do this, you have to send me people. You have to help me, and he did. He did.
Mm.
I've been doing it just strictly professionally now for probably close to maybe 10, 12 years at least.
Wow, I
And I
didn't
was always
realize
reading
that.
for people, you know. I was
Yeah.
reading for, you know, I was doing Reiki and we had the circles and, I would read for like people like, my friends or like just people like, like yourself, I got to
Hmm.
know you and you were in my energy field. So I was in yours too. Right. And so I would tell you what I was getting, but then the universe, kind of just, brought me to situations where I started to just, that's what I did. That's what I am. That's who I am now,
So you,
but I take all the, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, that's okay. I would say, you had mentioned an authentic reader. Is that what you said
Yes.
earlier?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
what is that? What does that mean?
So authentic means that you're born with it,
Okay.
knowing, most likely it ran in your family somewhere.
Hmm.
And it's like, you're naturally a healer. You're naturally a reader. Like you don't really need any tools
Mm.
to do that, but you can, maybe you have an affinity towards something that just opens the door. But I never studied tarot or
Mm.
I do some numerology where I can mostly just see how people I see things how I write in numbers, so or I can look at how they write their name
Mm.
and their birthday and see things. And I didn't study that, it's just something that you're born with.
Hmm.
And that's what is known as an authentic reader.
Gotcha. I had
Because you
no
can learn
idea.
some of these things, you can study, and you can be very good at it, but it's something that you opened a book, and I've never done that.
I had never really considered that there was something other than an authentic reader. I didn't think that you could just like try to learn how to pick up a book.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
I had no idea. And that actually makes me think like in business, I never use my intuition. The world has to be falling all around me before I figure out something's going on. But in like looking at my world where it's always been kind of like fighting to push forward, I have very masculine energy. You tend to be more on the feminine side, and you're kind of like having more of like a fluid flow of where we're just going to move in these directions and take these opportunities. And that's, that intuition and that ability to understand what's going on. That's fascinating.
Yes, and I mean, I've been fortunate where, things come, even if it's at the 11th hour. I just have to be like open to it,
Mm-hmm.
to get the message or to see the door opening, to take that path, but I've been fortunate that it usually becomes very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful because it's always great if you can be working your mission like you are and like, I feel I am. I think people excel at what they do and they're very happy and
Mm-hmm.
grounded and great things start happening and you attract good and positivity and all those things.
Do you ever feel like you've gone through like where you just got burnt out, being a single mother, running a business, and, was that something that you ever faced?
I mean, I just through most of my life I felt like I was just walking a tightrope, like
Mm.
all the time, like I was juggling everything and I wasn't always the best at it. I did but I had good intention of doing my best. I definitely didn't leave a lot of time for myself.
Mm.
Not always, because when you wear all the hats, and you're raising a child too, that you've got someone that you have to put before you. It wasn't the easiest, but I would never change it. It was a beautiful experience. I love my
Yeah.
son. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that. And
Oh, of
I'm
course.
so proud of him. And, you know, I wouldn't change a word, anything, but was it easy? No.
Yeah.
No. And, doing it alone, it really, it's not an easy thing to do. And, but it can be very, 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 very rewarding.
Yeah.
Take some great things out of it. But, um, I kind of put certain things for myself on the back burner,
Mm.
and the business I was in, I didn't make money unless I sold something. So, it was very like, you know, one week it could be great and next week maybe it's a little quiet, like, so it was a little bit of a roller coaster, for some reason I seem to have been drawn to that, or
Mhm.
um, working better under pressure, kind of thing. But, you know, um, it was like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
I would do it all over again many, many, many times.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it definitely, you grow from it. You grow and you learn, and so you mature, you know,
Yep.
get more responsible, things like that.
Evolve a little bit. So let me ask you a
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
What would it be like if you were to have a meeting, like a reading? Do you accept everyone? Do you funnel people out? Do you get like maybe you don't want to work with someone, or is it just, if someone shows up, what would that
I
process
mean,
be like?
hmm. I've never, I don't think I've ever, felt like I didn't, want to read somebody that wanted me to read them, really.
Hmm.
Um, but if I really felt something strongly, I would probably have to say I'm probably not the right reader for you or something. I
Hmm.
wouldn't go through with it if I did feel that. Um, and I believe that the people that come to me, that are drawn to me, that want a reading from me, it's because I have a message for them.
Mm.
Like that's why they're drawn to me. Like there could be, 100 psychics in a room, and whoever you're drawn to, I believe you have a message for that person. And
Mm.
there's enough in the world for all of us. And so the people that do come to me, I have a message for them. I don't know what it is until I start reading them, but I know I have one.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
what does a what does a reading look like? One of my sessions would comprise, asking
Okay.
birthdays if somebody wants to ask about another person.
Okay.
Um, I do use cards. They kind of open up, like their energy basically, and they tell little stories, because there's faces and people, and we focus on different areas of people's lives that they want to, or they ask specific questions and we get them answered. I use a pendulum.
Okay.
I'm clairvoyant. I hear and
Mm.
see things. So, um, I do a little bit of mediumship. I'm working on
Okay.
a little bit more on that because I'm interested in that. But oftentimes, people show up. Um, and if there's a message, I pass it. But we start with some cards and ask a birthday, and it just kind of flows from there.
Mm.
And it's very interactive. My readings are like I ask people questions. I want them to talk
Hmm.
because I'm trying to. My ultimate goal is for them to make mm, healthy, wise decisions for them, empower them to make good choices
Hmm.
for themselves. And we look at, what does it look like if I do this? What does it look like if I
Hmm.
do that? And you know, I let them know what I see, and I can only tell them what I see. I don't
Hmm.
sugarcoat things, or if I don't see it, I don't see it. If I see it, I have to tell you, but I find a way to diplomatically tell you. And if someone doesn't want to talk about something, we don't talk about it. I throw something out there, and if that's not where they want to go, then that's not where
Yeah.
we're going.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and often I may make some suggestions for some other forms of healing that they could benefit from, you know, based on what I see in the reading. And sometimes I'm capable of those things if they felt like it, and other times I may recommend them to someone else that I might know if they'd like, a recommendation. And I have a very high retention rate for my clients. I mean, I would say probably more than 95% of my clients call me like, whenever they need something, like they don't leave me, you know. So
Yes.
I'm very, very, very grateful for that.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that you've been able to, be in this male dominant world and still maintain this element of spiritual relation with God and also have the ability to pivot from that market of selling boats to, again, having your own business within your own natural talents. I think that's fantastic. So we're about to wrap up. So
Thank you.
any other last minute wisdoms you would like to share with our audience today?
Well, as we spoke earlier, the every day in every way, I'm getting better and better, and just believing in ourselves, and every day there's another possibilities for our lives. We can reinvent everything, and that's the good news. And I'm happy to be here, at this time and be part of it. And I appreciate taking the time for you to ask me questions, and give an opportunity to share what, some of my own personal wisdom and personal experiences. Erin, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. So I look forward to more conversations with you in the future. But for now, we're going to go ahead and say have a good night. And this is Dr. Murphy from the local healing house. Thank you so much for being with us today. Lisa is such a treasure in my life. She brings so much joy and she really has a lot of wisdom and she's very wise. So I definitely appreciate her being my guest on the show and sharing some of those natural talents. Sometimes we get a little afraid to tell people that we have certain gifts and sometimes we want to shy away from it. But if you're a business person and you do have that ability to become more in tune with your tuition, would you find yourself to be more successful? Does it matter if you're on boat yards, hanging out with a whole bunch of dudes and buying boats off of them and shipping them off across the world? That takes a lot of talent and a lot of skill. It also takes a lot of trust within your own self. And Lisa very clearly displays that she does trust her intuition. Some of the things that we learned from Lisa was the fact that she would get these feelings and she would follow through with them and she would put her feelings into action, such as, I need to answer this classified ad. I need to have this partner. I need to shake this man's hand. Those small little actions really were pivotal in her life and in her experience. We also learned that what I didn't realize is you can just pick up a book and, well, maybe not just pick up a book, but you can actually work a little bit harder on developing your own intuition and your own ability to trust what you're feeling and trust that movement. Lisa also talked a lot about having the positive outlook on all of your situations. We have a weekly update and our weekly goal, and what we discuss there is how she views how we should interact within our own selves, in our own bodies, in order to manifest a positive experience. So, thank you for tuning in today, and I'm so glad you're here with us on the journey. So, have a blessed night.